Good morning and welcome to our monthly webinar. Today's webinar is titled The Seguin Independent School District, a community-based approach to wellness. My name is Peter Cribb and I'm the National Director for the CATCH program with the Michael and Susan Dell Center for Healthy Living at the University of Texas School of Public Health and the Austin Regional Campus. We're very excited today about today's webinar, but before we get started, I would just like to take care of a little housekeeping. First of all, our webinar today is being recorded and an archive will be made available on the catchusa.org website, along with a PDF of the presentation slides. During today's webinar, we encourage you to type questions and comments via the questions box, which you can access through the control panel on your screen. You can type in your questions at any time. But to keep us on schedule, we'll try and hold off answering them until the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. Next, I'd like to share a little about the Michael and Susan Dell Center for Healthy Living. We are an international leader in conducting research and providing programs that promote healthy living for children, their families, and communities. Our work fosters improved health behaviors among youth, influences policy and environmental change to support healthy living, and advances professional education and community service. Our vision is healthy children in a healthy world. You can find out more about our center and our work in school health on our website, www.msdcenter.org. Now I'm very pleased to introduce our special guests for today's webinar, Dr. Bill Squires, Pete Silvius, Deborah Mahone, and Avery Knott. Dr. Squires is a professor of biology and kinesiology at Texas Lutheran University. By day, Dr. Squires also chairs the Seguin Student Health Advisory Committee. He also volunteers his expertise in exercise physiology so that the Seguin School District, which serves many disadvantaged community members, can improve the health of its students. Last year, Dr. Squires was honored with the Texas Health Champion Award. Pete Silvius is a physical educator, an outdoor education coordinator, and the CATCH champion for Seguin ISD. Pete works to promote health and wellness for both students and staff, utilizing community involvement and resources. He's developed several programs to teach students about lifelong fitness, such as overnight camping trips to the HEB Foundation Camp, and summer camps that include kayaking, skateboarding, and mountain biking. He has also created several opportunities for Seguin ISD staff to continue their own fitness goals through kayaking classes and a district wellness workout center. Deborah Mahone is a retired educator who has worked for 30 years in education as a teacher, diagnostician, administrator, and executive director of special education, federal and state programs, and student support services. She has developed adult and community education programs and has coordinated school health services, including mental health, community initiatives, and partnerships. In her current role with Resolute Health, she works with a community outreach team to develop and implement community programs and partnerships. Amy Knott is a community program coordinator for Resolute Health. With her educational background in community health, she works on several outreach programs in the New Braunfels and Seguin communities. She has aided in the development and implementation of several outreach programs and manages the So Healthy Garden program in multiple school districts. Welcome everyone, and I'd like to hand over to Pete Silvius to begin the webinar. Thanks Pete.
A lot. Thank you, Peter. We sure appreciate you guys inviting us to be with you today, and we're thrilled to be a part of it. So if you want to go to the first slide for me, that'd be fantastic. So let's bump one more, please. Awesome. All right, so what I want to talk about here is what works in Seguin will work in Texas. And I think this is important for us because when we go through our slides and talk about what we think works well here, it wouldn't matter if it wouldn't work elsewhere, but it will. So our economically disadvantaged population slightly higher than the state average, but not significant. And our town population of 25,000, I think that is relevant to any community regardless of where you're at. If you're living in a bigger city, you're still going to interact with that population size of about 25,000. That becomes your immediate community. And our school district population of about 7,500 would fall right in the middle if you were going to look at the statistics across the state. So everything that we do here in Seguin should be possible elsewhere. And you can go to the next slide, please. So we have a couple of foundations for our success in Seguin. I think the biggest one is our CATCH curriculum. So our coordinated school health is going to be the guiding foundation for us, and the principles from the CATCH program give our community common language and promote a culture that's going to celebrate wellness as a primary foundation to academic success. So without the CATCH curriculum being in Seguin, I don't think that any of our successful programs would be possible. Okay, and next slide, please. I'm going to pass this over now to Dr. Squires to talk a little bit about our shack.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure and privilege to be on this webinar. This is something that I've wanted to have happen, a CATCH program, since 1980. When I finished my doctoral work at the Baylor College of Medicine at the Institute of Preventive Medicine, we put together a monograph called Exercise and Heart Disease Theory and Application to Public School Physical Education. And 35 years later, we're seeing that happen with the integrated CATCH program. We start with an evidence-based school health advisory council, and by evidence-based, we are actually publishing work that we're doing here in peer-reviewed refereed journals. The philosophical construct that we have is from a colleague, friend, and professor emeritus at the University of Georgia by the name of Dr. Carl Glickman. And he was the MIDI professor at Texas State about 6 years ago when I had the honor of chairing the Navarro Independent School District School Board as a trustee. And our faculty and staff took this guiding principle called holding sacred ground. Holding sacred ground is about the school as the last place that a kid gets totally a fair shake. He's taught about the Constitution. He's taught about freedom, democracy, health, fitness, and we take care of every child that walks onto our sacred ground. Seguin ISD embraces that we hold sacred ground and we treat these children. Next slide, please. These are examples of two of the papers of several that we've used using School Health Advisory Council for Physical Activity Promotion. This was at the International Physical Activity Conference in Brazil, and Fitness Gram Friday Middle School Physical Education Intervention. And this is in the International Journal of Exercise Physiology. We've got several more in the pipeline, but it gives us the feeling that our colleagues who are evaluating our work seem to think that this is worthy to spread around in the scientific literature. Next slide, please.
So I think that this African proverb, I think, it sums up public education. I'm a firm believer in public education and what the responsibility and role of it is. And the idea of a village to raise a child is very important to us in Seguin ISD, and that's the reason why we have Resolute Health here to talk today about the new program that we're going to start in Seguin. But taking that a step further, the ASCD has done a fantastic job with their new approach to coordinated school health model. And I think that this model gives such a great example of how we have to spread out first within our school, then within our community. And we need to empower everyone within that system to their role within improving the health and wellness of our society. So it's not just enough for us within the school system to work as hard as we possibly can to meet the needs of the students. Our responsibility is also to go out in the community and let the community know that they have a responsibility to help us to meet those goals. And Resolute has stepped up, and we're going to talk more about that in just a moment. So if you go to the next slide, please. So the first step within that coordinated school health model is to integrate within the school system. And so I think we've done that in a strong way in Seguin. So what we believe is that happy, healthy teachers will create healthy schools. And so we have to inspire our teachers to take their own health and use their health as a tool for their teaching ability. So what we've done here is we've created several fitness opportunities. That we have a district fitness center now that is in a repurposed old school gym using donated equipment from other community partners and some grant-funded equipment. We have a Zumba program that happens on a daily basis using school district staff, so they're getting exercise while we're promoting exercise among the rest of the staff. One of my favorites is the kayaking. I love to kayak, and I take groups of teachers on a weekly basis down to kayak at the local river here too. And then we have to spread knowledge throughout the district. So on a weekly basis, I send out a newsletter to the district that always try to find some new little catchy fact about health and nutrition and remind them of their fitness opportunities within the community. So you can go to the next slide.
This is from the Institute of Medicine, and it kind of shows the paradigm which we're working for. As some of you may or may not know, we've been successful in securing funding to put a walking trail on every campus in Seguin ISD, so it's open in the evenings for the children, and we've partnered with Chamber of Commerce, the local hospitals medical foundation, to provide those funds. We have a collaboration with two major hospitals, Guadalupe Regional Medical Center and now Resolute Health. Those of you who don't know Resolute Health, it's totally dedicated to preventive medicine. It's a new hospital and Resolute Fitness Center with an aquatic center with an organic whole foods cafeteria. And so they're one of our big partners. Texas Lutheran University, and most importantly in some ways is the University of Texas School of Public Health in Austin. They have been a very, very big supporter of us, helping us write grants and obtain some of the funds. We also have cooperation with our local Chartwell's food service so that we can, using the catch paradigm, to make sure the kids eat healthy along the same thing. We have a grant, a yearly grant with the San Antonio Food Bank, where we feed 300 families through a voucher program. The San Antonio Food Bank brings a truck, and the faculty, staff, and students at Texas Lutheran help unload this truck. The vouchers are given through the school counselors to kids that need food at the end of the month to help them make it through. The good thing is that we get to pick the food. And so the fruits and vegetables, meat, and we don't do any cookies or junk food or any of those kind of bottled waters or a Propel type of a drink. So that gives us a market. One of the things that we haven't had in place until Resolute stepped in was community gardens and teaching the children where the food comes from. And that's going to be the next part of the presentation.
And before we jump to that, I want to also talk about, in the top left corner of this graphic, we talk about integrating physical activity every day, every way. And I think that within our school system, it's our responsibility and role to not only teach the kids about physical activity within the school day, but we want that to spread out. And I think this graphic does a great job of illustrating the importance of that within the community. And this graphic also shows us how important it is to activate the community. And so Resolute, in just a moment, they're going to talk about their program, and that fits perfect in this graphic with the activate employers and healthcare professionals. And their program, as Dr. Squires mentioned, fits right into making healthy foods available and marketing those healthy foods. So if you go to the next slide for me, one way that we try to promote physical activity is through outdoor education. So outdoor education, I believe, is the way that you connect physical activity from the school age through life. And so what we're doing here is we're trying to create a society of people that are reinvested in the environment, reinvested in the resources that we have, by protecting the environment, protecting those resources for us to recreate in. We're improving our physical health, our emotional health, our social health. And so what we've done is we've taken kids now out in the community, and we have outdoor ed classes that happen within the school day, within the school class period. But we've also expanded it to overnight camping trips. And so we really have a wide range of skills that these kids are coming back with. And those skills then transfer directly into the family, and that becomes recreation opportunities for the family. And if you go to the next slide, we also have a history of community-based PE, and I think that this is the extension into the community that has gathered quite a bit of attention. So with access to a school bus, what it does is it allows us to teach the kids the opportunities that exist within our limited community. Every single community is going to have places where kids can play in the summer and the weekends and after school, and it's our responsibility as a school that's promoting wellness to teach the kids how to use those facilities. And so in the past, we've made access of the swimming pool at Texas Lutheran University, all the city parks, golf course, bowling alley, skating rink, and skate parks. And we believe that this involvement within the community has allowed us to push to attract more bond funding, to have new parks that are going to be coming in. And we're constantly seeking more opportunities for our students to be physically active and to seek nutrition. And if you'll go to the next slide. So now what I want to do is we want to reference back to this Institute of Medicine graphic again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pull in that community garden program with Resolute. So I'm going to turn this over now to Avery, and we'll talk about our next exciting program.
Next slide, please. Yeah. So actually, we're going to start with Deborah Mahone. She's going to give us a little bit of a background about Resolute Health and the So Healthy program.
Okay, so when Seguin ISD came to us and wanted to partner with their approach with community health and coordinated school health, it aligned perfectly with our mission at Resolute Health. And the actual 3 leaves of our logo stand for individual, family, and community. And our mission then is to inspire, to engage, and to empower all 3 to work together for their own wellness, and to actually give them the skills then, the individuals, the families, and then the community as a whole, to have the skills and the tools they need to achieve their own wellness and their well-being for lifelong. So our actual very foundation program that we brought really came almost 3 years prior to any of our facilities, our hospital, any of our urgent care facilities, or our other care. It came to the community 3 years prior, and the mission of that project was really outdoor education, fitness, nutrition, and getting children particularly to understand where their food comes from, and what are sustainable foods, and what are the good foods that they need to eat, and why. What's the why behind that? So I'm going to pass the mic to Avery and let her start with some of the projects we've done in Seguin, and then we're going to talk about our big dream project that we've started, but we have a big vision for the future.
Next slide, please. So when we initially came to Seguin, we actually had a plan to start at a middle school with the project that you'll see earlier. But as we got going, we saw the timeline would take longer, and we wanted to really just get in right away. So in a matter of a few weeks, we took a pre-existing garden at a local elementary school, Rodriguez Elementary, and as you can see, actually Pete here is in one of these pictures tilling the garden. We both tilled. We had 2 tillers and 3 people and 14 beds. So we cleaned the beds out, and in a few weeks the kids were out planting and adding compost. And so we wanted to start by getting the kids involved, taking them through our traditional curriculum that we have developed already and practiced in other areas. And as you can see at the bottom, there's a little cute picture of doing some fitness. So we always incorporate fitness into each program. We talk about the science behind the gardening, and then we talk about the nutrition related to the garden. So if you'll go to the next slide, you can see a few more pictures of them harvesting. So this last spring, we actually, at the end of the semester, since the kids, it took a while to get them to take stuff home, what we did instead was invite all of their parents out for a big pasta night. So we had free dinner for all the parents of the children involved in the program. So next slide. So our next project is actually a garden build out at a pre-existing garden at a middle school here. This is our map and our layout of what we have planned to do. Some of these buildings already exist, so we approached this area because it did have pre-existing structures, but it just needed a little TLC and some updates. But the land itself was large enough to add a lot more things, which we'll go into after this. So next slide. Okay, Deb's going to talk a little bit about this.
Okay, so you can kind of see the true aerial view from the county here, and then the slide prior to this was, of course, our rendition of what things that we want to include there. And the perimeter is actually intended to be another walking trail, which will be at the existing elementaries, or that Seguin already has at the existing elementaries, but it would be a community walking trail. There's also a spot where we want to have a soccer field built out that the community could use. And then if you look to the left of the slide, you can see the smaller area where there are the existing buildings and the existing garden that's there. And then we're going to continue to talk about some of the improvements that we want to make. Next slide, please. Okay, so we broke it down into phases, and we actually are pretty much completed or all in the process of completing phase 1. And this shows that the cleanup and removal of some things, the facility's actually been there, I believe, since the 90s. And so it was used quite a bit in the 90s, and then it's still being used by the middle school, but the entire facility is no longer being used. So we want to update the existing structure. Yes, and there is also a greenhouse there, which I believe in one of the next phases you'll see that we want to update, but we do want to update the existing classroom. There's a shed which we want to expand to have some outdoor classroom area, and then the greenhouse, which is an awesome greenhouse that just needs some TLC to get it back in shape to use for full greenhouse. Next slide. So in phase 1, section 2, we have our land preparation, as we talked about, some fitness field updates, and then the garden ground updates. So we have 3 phases there. And just to back up a little bit in the process, we did, as we were planning these phases, we did have involvement from certainly the school officials and these teachers that are on the middle school campus that will be accessing this and be able to use the facility even more. We worked with our ag extension folks, with our master gardeners, with some other community members, with parents. So we did get a lot of input and had several meetings. The SHAC committee began with this plan, and then we met 3 different times and looked at the different phases. So we did have a lot of input to create these phases, and we're getting ready to implement. Probably we're going to start phase 2 soon. Next slide, please. Okay, here's some more information on phase 1. So, and you can kind of, these relate back to the drawing, so it's a little easier if you do access the PDF later. You can almost put them side by side and kind of look at, it's kind of a key actually to the diagram. So we've already mentioned the garden shed, the classroom, the patio is the outdoor classroom piece, the greenhouse, and then also composting. There's a great area in the back that has some composting in there, but we want to improve that area, and then herb gardens. Okay, next slide. I'm going to pass this over to Avery and let her kind of just show you. These are some of the slides that show what it will be or what it could be.
So we have a few picture examples of some inspiration that we have. These are not existing at our site, but they're ideas for us to build upon. So you'll see just some sheds. We'd love for it to be an art project as well. We want to be able to incorporate this not only for the whole community, but other subjects beyond just science and horticulture. So having art students paint the buildings and having you know, woodshop students help build things like the compost bins you see at the bottom. Next slide. So within this, we also have a few other things that we'll build out. So we'll have the garden rows, practicing a wide row vegetable method, some raised beds. And what's really neat about those is that we have some brick that was left over from elementary schools that were built. And so we plan to build each bed with the bricks of an elementary school. We'll use keyhole gardens, which is a new, kind of new practice that's becoming very popular in order to reduce water. And then we'll add just things to the grounds to make it prettier, vine plants on the fence and things like that. At this time, we'll start building the walking track and start putting in the soccer fields. Next slide. These are just some more picture examples of what they might look like when it's all done. Next. So in phase 2, we'll have the students begin planting and putting in the vegetables, doing that and beginning really their program and being able to start back up at the horticulture class. We also have what we like to call our purpose gardens, so smaller little mini gardens around the area that each have a different theme, including a peace for the mind, so an area that's sort of a meditation garden and a tranquility garden, a pollinator patch to attract beneficial insects, and a native nook to highlight the native plants, both ornamental and edible. Next. So this is just a little bit more about each of those, and I've kind of gone through that, but for the Peace for the Mind garden, we'd like to, you know, utilize aromatic plants that, you know, give off a tranquility, use neutral colors and things that a lot of meditation gardens often use, rounded areas, and we like to leave a space for there to be a yoga yard where you could practice yoga in the area as a community benefit for not just the students but community members in the area. And our pollinator patch should hopefully attract to the whole garden. And we also will have a mini orchard. So using dwarf variety of fruit trees, we'll have a little citrus corner for adapted citrus trees and adapted peach trees in the back inside the garden area. Next. And this is, again, more picture examples, a little bit of inspiration. So next. So Deb's going to talk about phase 3 and just the future of what will happen after.
And these are suggestions, and as we develop through phase 1 and phase 2, of course, this will evolve with the input from this, the children, the community, and but we did have some possibilities of garden additions to create ecosystems right there for children to learn from and from the community to learn from. So there's a possibility of chicken coops, rainwater catchments, a water cistern, and also adding fitness stations to our walking trails so that there would be very specific exercises that that the community could do, or just stop and maybe meditate at a bench or to learn from. And then, of course, future plans and maintenance. That has to be ongoing to keep this project sustained. Next slide. Okay, so our rainwater barrel and fitness station, this just talks about some of the very specific things that we have got input that they wanted included in the project. Next. This shows some examples of fitness stations. We're hoping to have sponsors, so maybe sponsors for each fitness station with their plaques. So we'll give the more input on what type of stations they want as we develop that. Next slide. Okay, so this is an important question, and it's something that, you know, really you always have to keep in mind from the very beginning, is your funding and then your sustainability. How are we going to keep this going for the community and the schools to continue to use and to expand? So we have some initial pledge from the Resolute Health and Wellness charity. We're looking at grants and other resources. We have some community partners. We will be soliciting others. And then we also, like we said, adopt a project or a phase, so we can have sponsors just for small parts of it as we break it down. And even within the phases, we'll break it down into smaller increments. And then sustainability, it's a lot of work up front, but the sustainability for this type of project will come from actually the students using it. We have a horticulture program that will continue to use it, and hopefully we'll be able to expand and use more and more of their curriculum and have more of an outdoor classroom. Community members we'll be using it, and then our partnership with the university, which is literally right across the street from this location, so it's perfect. And then, of course, development of future phases as it evolves with the community-based project. Next slide. That's it. Okay, so Pete, you want to wrap up for us?
What we'd like to do now is open up to questions. We obviously are very excited about our partnership with Resolute Health, and very excited about all of the partners that we've brought in to help us meet the needs of the students here in Seguin ISD. But if we can open it up to questions, we'd love to tell you more about it.
Sure. Pete, we've got a couple of questions. First one's from Ron. And Ron was wondering, who is providing the horticultural class?
So the horticulture class is part of the junior high school day. It's an elective that some students are selecting within their school schedule.
Very good. And Sarah asks, does the district or other entity pay for staff time to offer employee wellness opportunities, such as kayaking and so on? Or are these offered as a volunteer basis?
These are offered as a volunteer basis. So all of these activities are available after school. That's the dream, is to somehow get this within the school day, but we're still reaching for that. Right now, what we do is we have the classes open up at about 4 o'clock. So you hit teachers that get off of contract right about 4. And then you have office staff that get off at 5. So we have to make sure that we can meet both of those needs. So what we have now is a 4 to about 6:30 is how that's working.
Great. I just encourage others, if you've got questions, to type them into the questions box, and we'll answer them straight away. I really love the idea, where do foods come from? Reminds me of we were doing some surveys with 4th grade students, and I asked the kids, where do French fries come from? And they're very quick to tell me they came from the freezer. So right. I'm really excited that they're learning about where they come from themselves. But you talked about some staff wellness earlier. How have the teachers responded? We have phases where it seems like just everyone else in the world of health and wellness knows that right after the first of the year, you always get a big push, and we see a big push then. We also see a big push when we introduce something new. So when we have a new class, like in the spring, we did the kayaking, and that brought out some new folks. I think the key to it is to try to always keep it fresh and exciting. So that's been our goal. We're going to constantly seek out more instructors. So Zumba seems to be one that is fairly consistent, and a lot of people really love Zumba. But we want to reach out to some other types of group fitness opportunities with yoga and with cross-training type approaches. So that is my goal, is to constantly seek out those resources to make that possible. Of course, we want to touch more, and we're never going to be satisfied until we have classes that are so full that we have to turn people away. But as of now, we're happy with what we have. Absolutely. Question from Holly. And yes, reaching out to parents, getting that information home is obviously a significant. I mean, that's why you're doing what you're doing, clearly, from the community's point. But Holly wants you to elaborate just a little bit more on your wellness newsletter. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So the wellness newsletter, I'm pretty good at borrowing other ideas from people, and so I do a lot of searching to find out different health facts, and then we try to reuse those as much as possible. But what I've done, I've had several different templates that have come off of software that are available on the school computers. So the most recent one that I've been really happy with is from Pages within the Mac system, and it has a template that's really colorful and attractive, so that has worked well. I think the important part of this is to really find those statistics and find this research-based wellness that comes from relationships with universities. So often I seek out support from Dr. Squires at TLU or folks over at Texas State to find what is the most important thing now, what are the trends in health and wellness. And I think that's really needs to be the guiding focus of all of this, is that it's evidence-based. So that has worked quite well. I'd like to also talk about when we have parent involvement. Resolute Health has done some fantastic things with getting parents involved with the program. And just recently this summer, we had a gardening camp, and they invited the parents to come out and to see what the kids were doing. And that was just fascinating. I'm going to put Resolute on the spot, but see if they could elaborate a little bit about that.
Okay, this is Deb, and yeah, we had the camp, and actually Avery and I both were there for the week-long camp, and we had as much fun as the children actually, but we kind of incorporated our So Healthy curriculum, which is aligned with the state science and nutrition and health curriculum, and like Avery said previously, it has been integrated into some other areas like art, like reading. So we started off with that as our foundation for our camp, but we also added in nutrition, fitness, muscle mapping. We taught them how to make herbal teas, how to hydrate in South Texas without added sugar. So we made some herbal teas, we let them add some agave, we let them use honey. They grew some of their own herbs, and they used herbs in there. We did some meditation, some yoga, just real brief yoga because the children were ranged from age 5 up to age 8, and we had quite a few that were 5 and 6. So I was really amazed. Even after 30 years in education, the kids never ceased to amaze me, and I was really amazed at how much those children learned. And then when the parents were able to come that final day, and they did a big like a buffet for the parents of all the healthy different kind of foods that they had learned to sample and make, and they were teaching their parents how to make this herbal tea that was really good for them. So it was really a great event that we would like to replicate and even expand on, next summer, to give these kids this kind of intense foundation about nutrition and fitness and how to take control of their own wellness. Anything, Avery?
Yes, I wanted to point out, and I mean, the camp and the program and a lot of the different things that Catch also brings is truly a testament to the interactive learning. I could talk to a child about a tomato, but when I give it to him and have him chop it and have him taste it and put it on top of something, that's when the behavior changes start. That's at least I think. And when we invite their parents, and it's their job to suddenly teach their parents about what they learned, they might not have recited those muscles as well to me as they did to their parents, but they learned it because they knew that they were going to interact with someone. They wanted to know this. And, we, like Deb said, we did have a young group, but it was amazing what they took from it and the amount of health information they did learn in a short amount of time at a young age.
Great. And this next question probably for both of you two, Deb and Avery, from Mark. And we're talking about sustainability, of course, it's such a difficult issue in his schools in rural South Carolina. After funding runs out, schools don't really budget well. Any suggestions on how schools can budget for that maintenance?
Well, there's really several. There's so many things. You do have to get creative. There's a lot of small, first of all, funding grants out there that, will carry you through a year at a time. And then we've talked about a project that a lot of our teachers, we have focus groups with our teachers that are involved in the garden projects with their students, and a lot of them are interested in having like farmers markets and farm stands at their schools. And we haven't actually implemented this district-wide anywhere yet, but we want to try to work with schools to collaborate, and perhaps they choose a couple of crops and they all grow them, and then they can get together and have a farm stand. So that's one way that they can actually raise some money back. And of course there's traditional fundraisers, but you're kind of saturated with those in schools these days, so you have to kind of get creative and come up with some ways. And there are ways to budget within the school districts as well, but you know, that's a whole other webinar probably about how you can use special programs money to just set aside some of that for wellness. And then your education foundations, they're usually very supportive of these type of initiatives, and you can even get your volunteers sometimes through that, as well as other community entities.
Can I add something to that? I think that's a very important topic, and I think what it really illustrates too is our responsibility in this field to, we're in the business of educating students, but their health and wellness is foundational to that process. And until we get to the point where we can start talking logically about funding, funding has to go to meet these base needs too. And so that's where it's so important that everything is an evidence-based approach, and where we integrate with the universities so that we have research that's supporting what we all know to be true.
Right. Pete, this one might be for you. You know, with all the programs already in place at Seguin, how are teachers and program facilitators collecting and integrating feedback from students, families, and communities?
Yeah, that's a real good question. I don't know that I have a straightforward approach to that. We do have feedback from our programs that shapes the programs, but I do not have any forms or any surveys to support that. It's just it just has been from either observation or verbal feedback that we make adjustments, but that is an important part of sustainability and something that we probably need to put a more firm foundation with.
Great. Yeah, I've got a question from Patty, and I'm thinking that most of the food that's grown is consumed on campus and within the district, but is there a plan in place to donate any of this food to local food pantries?
This is Avery. We have actually in the past with our previous program from So Healthy donated to local food pantries, and it is always something we do with excess. It first goes to the students and their families because oftentimes they are just as in need and very excited about it. But once the garden, when you have a successful year, we have, you know, in one day you'll have 30 pounds of tomatoes, and absolutely it goes to local food pantries. We have also done senior citizens centers and taken it to them, and you know, it's always so well received because produce is something they don't get a lot of, especially fresh picked. So it does, yes.
Great. And one question from Beth, is the So Healthy curriculum available?
As of right now, it is available via licensing. We have a license agreement that we have actually sent to Nashville. So, but it's still we're constantly changing and developing. But our contact information is here, either Deb or I, Avery. You can email us and ask us more about that.
Great. Well, that's pretty much all the time we've got for today. I'd really, you know, extend my thanks again to Dr. Squires, Pete Silvius, Deb Mahone, and Avery Knight. Thank you all so much for sharing all the wonderful things that are going on in sunny Seguin ISD. I've had a pleasure to go and visit several times, and actually even been on a skateboard in one of Pete's classes, so it's pretty scary with the assistant superintendent. But again, you guys are providing all these opportunities and resources, you know, to get the kids, the teachers, and well, the kids' families all excited about, you know, being healthy and creating and supporting that environment, not just at the school but in the community. And I think we'll all agree that's what it takes to make a change. You mentioned behaviour change a couple of times there, and that observable change in what the kids are doing and eating and participating in and so on.
Peter, this is Bill. I'd like to just say one final thing.
Sure.
First of all, I really want to thank the University of Texas School of Public Health, from Dean Perry to Steve Kelder, to Diane, to Dr. Bill Cole, and to yourself. You are making a change in society. And our motto that we're going to end with today is from Hippocrates, the first physician of 400 BC, "Thy food shall be thy medicine." Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Until next month, you'll travel safe and take care. Bye now.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.